Hello everyone, I am CoolGuy. Welcome back, and today I would like to cover the pulse rifle in depth a little bit for Destiny 2 to see how they are in the game, where they are in the game, and also going to cover what I believe is going to be the best pulse in each RPM category at the moment. Now the goal of the video is to talk about the strengths and weaknesses of the pulse currently and how each RPM makes you play differently. And at the end I do have a summary, and I believe that's going to be the most important part of the review. That's going to be the main thing to take away. It's how we use them and the things we talk about leading up to that summary. It's going to give the overall landscape. So I want you to think in PvE and PvP, if these truly were competitive, you would see them everywhere. And at the moment, you see them every now and then, but in the grand scheme of things, you don't really see them. I'm talking about them as is right now because they are going to be getting a buff in an upcoming sandbox update, and hopefully I aim to arm you with the knowledge to be ready for when that happens. The pulse rifle has some shortcomings in Destiny 2, and again, I want you to think about this. What other weapon types in the game do you have to drastically change your playstyle when you jump around different RPMs? Say you have a 180 RPM scout and a 200 RPM scout. Do you use them differently? Do you change your playstyle for that scout? With a sidearm, Omelon burst or not? Do you change your playstyle depending on that RPM? Again, with the ARs, 450s, say you're using a Uriel's Gift or let's say a Scathlock, do you have to change the way you play? The answer is no, not really. And when you start going in between RPMs for the pulses, and we have the fast firing to slow, we have 540, 450, 360, 320, each one makes you do different things. Very few classes of weapons in Destiny 2 make you do that. Each one makes you play differently. So I plan to point out what you can do as a player to be more successful with them currently, because I really enjoy the pulse rifle. I know a lot of you guys do. So at the moment, I want to try to help you guys enjoy them a little bit more before this update. First, we need to talk about what is valuable on a pulse rifle. It's stayed true for me since Destiny 1. There are certain stats that you pick out. For those stats, you need to see what that stat is doing, if it is high or low, and if it's low, what it's doing and if it affects the overall weapon too negatively. To get one thing straight about pulses, and the Crucible specifically, it's not necessarily about the time to kill. That's not the issue. Most have a great and competitive time to kill. The issue is going to be flinch, combined with a long TTK in Destiny. It's really a simple recipe for disaster. Your burst gets thrown off constantly, and most importantly, if you break it down in detail, there isn't really one thing that a pulse rifle does better in its effective range than any other weapon that shares that effective range currently, such as an auto rifle. With pulses, you pick out and pay attention to stability, aim assist, and recoil direction. And when you look at some other stats, like let's take range. The pulse rifle has a very odd effective range in relation to damage drop off, because with a pulse, you 100% know when you're out of effective range. You get some really bad numbers or you're not even going to hit your shots. So remember, aim assist, accuracy, and other stats are tied in the range stat, so a higher range does have added benefit. That counts for scouts as well, and in a previous video I was talking about range on a scout rifle upping the range. A lot of players are like, what are you talking about? Why does that matter? And yeah, it's true, on an average PvP map, you're not going to see damage drop off, but a higher range does have those added benefits of the accuracy, the aim assist, things like that. So a higher range does give you those better stats. That goes for every single weapon in the game. But the three that we chose, stability, it has to do with the burst grouping. One burst has 3 shots that come out. So if you have a really low stability, the 3 shots are hitting further apart from each other. The burst goes up higher. And once you start adding stability, they start grouping closer and closer, and the very last shot doesn't go as high. This battles flinch, which is a very important part of Destiny 2. This makes the actual burst land effectively at all ranges. The burst is going to spread out further you are away. As a player, that's something that you're going to choose and look at. There's an actual trade-off with pulse rifles. If you go with high stability, you have a tighter, more precise shot. Generally, if you spec for range, you're going to have better distance, better drop-off, but the burst is going to get away from you, and flinch is going to punish you a lot more. Personally, if there is a medium to that, do that. Where you can't go with both, I honestly go with stability. I want a tighter shot as a player. For me, I need to have that. But I also know I need to be within effective range, which a pulse rifle makes you do. The burst height from the stability comes into effect in your mid to long range engagements. The burst starts at a center point, it rises up. At those mid to long ranges, be sure to aim a little bit lower. Let the burst come up into the head area. Aim just a little bit above mid body mass, and actually, sometimes that'll actually give you a critical even though you're landing like almost lower neck, upper chest. But if you start at the head of those mid to long range engagements, your first shot's going to land, but the burst is going to trail up and it's going to miss shots. Even worse, you're going to land that first shot. If you're taking fire, it's going to get thrown up and then off due to flinch. We don't want to do that. So a higher stability makes all of this a lot easier. It makes you a lot more precise, and please, I encourage you at mid to long range, aim a little bit lower. And lastly, you can pull that burst down. I encourage you to pull the burst down. In a gunfight, don't let the recoil fly. Your shot's gonna be thrown off by flinch. This helps combat that out of the rip. So have a little down tension on your right stick, and with that down tension, you're kind of leveling out that burst. The more you do it, there's an actual sweet spot. You can make those 3 rounds shoot essentially straight. Next is aim assist. This is going to help your ease of use, console mostly. It's never a bad thing. Higher the aim assist, the stickier the aim is when you're acquiring your target. And then we have recoil direction. When this stat is high, you should have a really good burst. There are 2 things that go into recoil direction on a pulse rifle. We have burst trail and burst drift. The trailing of a burst means it's going to start at a center point, it's going to go up and kind of hook. It's going to kind of trail off, you know, the second and third round. Now burst drift is where it kind of moves horizontally. Take your fast firing pulse rifles like Time War and SPIRE. It doesn't hook or anything, it actually is going to drift to the left or to the right. With both of these in Destiny 2, we do have counterbalance mods to combat this. Usually a really low recoil direction stat, it's going to produce one or both of those, a burst drift or a burst trail. In the past, as we went over the Time War and SPIRE review, the counterbalance mods help that thing out tremendously. And every pulse rifle, it's a really big mod for them. Some it helps a little bit, some it helps greatly. But what the mod is helping, it's either eliminating a drift, eliminating a trail, or both of them. The more mods that you stack, the tighter it's going to be. They're very valuable on pulse rifles, again, if you can spare them on your gear. There's so many pulse rifles in the game, we don't really have time to go over all of them, but you can go on patrol, kind of here on Titan, or wherever you want, and kind of see what that burst is doing. Is it kind of going up and trailing off? Is it actually moving? See what you can do to eliminate that to make it a little bit more tighter. Those are the main things I really look for. Stability, tight grouping, mid to long range, aim a little bit lower, control your burst. If you can, say your burst is kind of trailing to the left, aim left shoulder or on your right side of your enemy. Let the burst go into them if you're not going to put a counterbalance mod. Little things like that, you can become more potent with the pulse rifle. Let's go through what I believe is the best pulse in each RPM category, and some of you guys might disagree with me, that's okay. I do have some reasoning why I chose these specifically, and we'll talk about them. It's probably going to change as we get the buff, but it gives you a sense of what is working right now and what to look for in the future, and with what we're talking about today, maybe we can capitalize on it and make it even better. So for the 540s fast firing, best in class is going to go to the Time War and SPIRE in the Darkest Hour. We won't dive in too deep. In the description there's a full review of these weapons. I do give the edge to the Time War and SPIRE. Detailed stats are going to be in that video. Its base stats are all above average. There are some stats that are even the best out of every pulse rifle in the game. This pulse, in my opinion, is the actual front runner for best pulse right now. And we're going to see why at the end of the video. Next is the 450s. We have the Nightshade, Nurgle, Agenda 5, things like that. Out of these, I'm going to go with Nightshade. A lot of you early game players are going to be very familiar with it. Its stats are on the screen, and some of them are going to be the best of the 3. It has the best range, stability, reload, handling. It has some good aim assist, but it has the worst recoil direction. So remember, that's a bad stat. We need to see what it's doing. So as we look at it right now, we kind of see burst drift, burst trail, even if it has any at all. And then we talk about what we can do. Maybe we can put some counterbalance mods, things like that. Besides the stats, the main draw is going to be kill clip. It grants bonus damage for 5 seconds when you reload after getting a kill. This ups the damage from 20 per critical to 26. This is where you want to be with this weapon. This raises the bar for the weapon. It makes it very deadly. Next, we have the 360s, Swift Ride, Cadenza, Inaugural Address, and the last prediction. I'm going to go with the Inaugural Address from the Raid. Its base stats, again, strong, above the rest in the RPM class. Best range, second best stability, reload speed, handling, second best recoil direction of all pulses in the game, actually. So very strong base stats. It also it sounds really cool and unique. I really like and enjoy the sound of it. Same thing, we have kill clip. That's the main draw. And we're going to talk about this later and how and why we're using them. It does 23 to the head, 15 to the body. Kill clip gives you 30 damage per bullet, so 90 per burst. It's a real heavy hitter once you get that going. And then finally, we have the slow firing 320s. These are the least forgiving. These aren't really used, and we won't be spending too much time on them at the moment. But from what I've used and seen statistically, Dead Orbits 3 Graves kind of handles the best, but it's not even that great. However, out of these, if you feel you absolutely need to use this archetype in PvP and in PvE, use Graviton Lance. It's a rare occasion, and exotic is going to be the best in category because it still has issues. The stability is really what you want on this thing, even right now. Even though the last bullet kind of rises up high, it's very true, very tight grouping. The other 4 are very below average. Here's the thing though, say you start practicing with the Lance. It's going to be getting a huge buff soon. They talked about it in this week at Bungie. It sounds like it's going to have real big play capabilities, things like making it even more stable, having the burst only have 2 rounds instead of 3, the exotic perk doing more. Really big, really good chance of making big plays with this thing. I hope it's really good. But in all, the pulse rifles are tough, and you can do well with any weapon in the Crucible as long as you're playing smart. Every weapon that we've talked about today, I personally have gotten a wee random medals with, and even the slow-firing ones like the Einstein D, the Graviton Lance. The Einstein was more about positioning. There's nothing really to that weapon that makes it great. If you play smart, you can do well with anything in the game. So here's how I've found the most success with these pulse rifles. Using the weapons that we talked about today specifically, the trend is going to be the slower the RPM, the harder it is to use. That's that horrible relationship between burst delay, flinch, distance, time to kill, and again, I want to walk through why these pulse rifles are pretty much the only one that makes you change your playstyle as you jump through different ones. So starting off with the 540s, fast firing. Currently, it's the only pulse rifle in the game that you can feel confident in and consistently win 1v1 engagements with. This RPM is the only one that counteracts the shortcomings of the pulse rifle in Destiny 2. The rate of fire is fast enough that any shots that are missed or thrown off by flinch is easily recovered, and it's the only one that you can be the most aggressive with. When I'm playing with the Time-Worn SPIRE, Darkest Before, Lincoln Green, I can be up in enemies' faces, I can challenge short to mid-range. It has the lowest range out of all pulses, but you shouldn't really be, and you can't be challenging scouts. The RPM class is really sharing that AR space though, and I can tell you that matches really well against the ARs, and I stand firm on that this is going to be the best option for the pulse rifle currently. Destiny 2 is a very team shot, team focused game. We're not reinventing the wheel here. It's kind of slow, but the live team is aiming to change that, making the game faster. But until then, for now, when you're playing solo, playing with a team, you're usually with one of them. You're kind of moving together in choke points and kind of spawning with each other and moving and team shotting. The particular pulse rifles that I chose today thrive on that, and this is the reason I chose them like that. With the Time-Worn SPIRE and company, you can do your thing. You can run around, feel confident in your ones, and challenging. Hopefully with the upcoming pulse buff, I can feel like that with any pulse rifle, like that's the dream. But as of right now, I'm not sure about you guys, but the 540s feel really good in your hands. Now the other two, we have the Inaugural Address and the Nightshade. Both of them have kill clip, and I talked about this a lot in the past. You've heard it from people like True Vanguard as well. Kill clip in Destiny 2 is a very, very potent perk. And with how we play with these pulses, these two specific ones thrive. It's something I want you guys to try if you haven't tried yet, and you can get a lot of success with them going through your engagements. The rules stay kind of the same. You spawn in, you stay with your teammate, find a teammate, push with your team, things like that. Again, for me, the key to success with these is concentrating on leeching with the pulses. It kind of sounds weird. Concentrate on that when you spawn in. Look for the cleanups. Get kill clip going. When you do that, you're a force to be feared. You do massive damage when you start putting your follow-up shots. And again, for me, this is where it shines. I encourage you to try it with these pulses. Even when this update goes live, with this, you realize you have your weakness, you're going to capitalize on it with the strength. Again, those weaknesses being flinch versus time to kill versus burst delay. So knowing that, with especially the Nightshade and the Inaugural Address, I try to avoid true 1v1s because I don't have the advantage. A lot of weapons like the ARs are just going to mow me down. Weapons like the Uriel's Gift severely punish you for missing your shots, missing your burst. So my time is focused about watching my lane, staying with my team, and focusing on that team shot aspect. And say the game does get kind of Destiny 1-ish, being kind of rowdy and fast-paced, it's still gonna be very beneficial on these things, and hopefully you can maybe win your ones more consistently. But getting straight to its strength, which is kill clip, is what you want to try to do. Every moment that we're using them, once we're team shotting, you try to leech the kill, get the reload, start doing your massive damage. Again, it's kind of a mindset that I want you guys to go into your next game, because you can do well with these pulses and you don't really see them. But if you have that mentality of going in, staying with your team, getting the cleanup kill, getting the reload, and then just hammering down damage, you're gonna have really good games. I can promise you. I know that's kind of odd, kind of lame, but honestly, let's be very real with each other right now. It is a team shot game. So if we're gonna be doing that, when you choose these pulses, when you get that first kill, you start laying it down. And you know what? I just don't see it too often. Probably every time I play Destiny, I'll probably spend a couple hours doing this with these pulses, especially the Inaugural Address. Because all you need to do is get that pick, get your reload, and 5 seconds is a long time in game. So anybody that challenges is going to get mowed. The goal of this video is to talk about them a little bit, to show the downfalls, the strengths, why we see them sometimes, why we don't really see them most of the time. Most importantly, now and into the future, what to look for on the pulse: drift, trail, tightness, grouping, effective range. And using what we have now currently to kind of push the envelope with the pulses. I have a feeling that when the buff comes, that they're going to be really good. If they get any type of damage buff, everything that we talked about today is just going to be that much better. And right now, you can do well with them. Focus on the things that we talked about today, and hopefully you can find some success with them. So let me know in the comment section your views on the pulse rifle currently, and what direction you would like to see them to go. Thank you guys for watching. Please remember to rate the video, and until the next one, I am CoolGuy.